Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman.
I'm Mike Massinio.
And this is the weekly movie throwdown, where each week we look at two films that have something in common, films that are often discussed in the same conversation, and talk through which one is better. And this week we're looking at 1995's Heat, directed by Michael Mann, versus 2010's The Town, directed by Ben Affleck. Who's going to win? We'll find out in a bit. Just right off the bat, that introduction tells you we've flipped our format a little bit, decided that in 2026 we're going to liven things up by leaning into the throwdown aspect of our name, and we're going to take two films that kind of feel similar in some way and just talk through which one is better, if either. Sometimes they might not be better. Sometimes it might just be what it is. And what's really exciting is we're going to have voting on social media, so you can get involved, which is very cool. We're going to post polls across our social media. Follow us. We're at Movie Throwdown Pod, and cast your vote and be a part of the show. For bonus points, tell us why you voted the way you did, and we'll probably read it on the air. Are you excited about this new format, Mike?
I feel like this is our destiny.
Yeah.
That's what we've been moving towards. Just being able to pick two movies and argue about which one we like better. I'm 100% in on this.
It's been right there.
I guess I have
to
be. I'm here, and this is our podcast, so I have to be in on it. So either way,
I didn't have to drag you into this. It's really
no,
good.
but that's fair. I came willingly.
Yeah, good. Well, it is a new year. We took the month of December off. How were your holidays? Did you get down that checklist of films that you watch every year?
Yeah, I took a month off. I don't feel rested at all. I'm midway into a winter beard, which I started too late, so everything's kind of a mess. I did watch quite a few things, or I tried, but I usually get sidetracked by watching terrible Christmas rom-coms, as we've discussed before. But it was pretty hit or miss this year, I have to say. And I watched probably one of the worst things I think I've ever seen.
Really?
which was the movie My Secret Santa on Netflix, which is a cast that I actually like, two leads that I liked, and I thought I would try to watch it. And I started watching it. It's basically like a Mrs. Doubtfire, but with Santa Claus, where there's this woman and she used to be in a band, but she needs money, and just so happens that her brother and his partner do makeup, and they turn her into a man so she could be a store Santa Claus at this place, but it's run by the son of the guy that she met on the street. It's ridiculous. And I got about 40 minutes into it and just felt my brain oozing out of the side of my head, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to pull a ripcord. It was rough.
So I'm assuming this is like a 90-minute film, and you made it 40 minits in.
Yeah. I tried. I really tried to, you know me, I'm a glutton for finishing something. I was trying to get through it, and I was like, wow, I don't think I can make it. So I had to bail.
So who are the stars?
It was a rough one. Oh, I mean, the female lead was, I know her from This Is Us. She played, she was in that. And the male lead was, he was in a couple of TV shows too. I'm trying to think of the TV shows he was in. I remember him he was in The Blacklist. It's called My Secret Santa.
I'm gonna look it up because
the actor was in that show, The Blacklist, and he was good in that. They're both fine actors. But the premise was just impossible to get behind.
Alexandra Breckenridge and Ryan Eggold.
Yeah, Ryan Eggold has been in a couple of TV shows. He played the doctor in it was his TV show on NBC. This escaped me at the moment, but he was good in that too. I mean, nothing wrong with the actors. That was fine. And you don't get that Netflix rom-com money. It's fine. I have no problem with that. What I did see though, the one movie I did like, it was a Netflix rom-com about a Christmas heist. I think that's what it's called, The Christmas Heist. I think that was what it was. Yeah, that one was okay. That one was pretty good. That was the only one I saw this year that I thought was pretty good.
So you really went new school with all of these.
Yeah, I try to watch new ones. That's what I try to watch. It's called Jingle Bell Heist. That's what I watched.
Jingle Bell Heist.
That's the one.
There actually is a Christmas heist as well. So I think.
So this is different. Jingle Bell Heist with Olivia Holt. who was also in a Thanksgiving themed movie that someone told me to watch called Turkey Drop. Let's not even get into this. It's fine. Like I said, I go as stupid as it goes for the holidays. I don't know why, but this year it really burned me. I tried to watch Merry Xmas as well, which did not work for me. I think this year may have finally soured me on this. I may just stick with some classics. I did end up watching Christmas in Connecticut again just to kind of cleanse my palate after watching some terrible, terrible Christmas movies. So that was helpful.
A good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should actually thank you, because since we started with the Reoscared podcast, oh my God, was that 3 years ago now? I was very averse to classic films in general, and I've made up for lost time since then. But we did an episode where we had to watch all the iterations of A Christmas Carol, and I got really hooked on it. So we watched the Alistair Sim one at my in-laws' house. But the downside is that both with this and It's a Wonderful Life, Amazon colorized them.
And that's the only one available for free. The other ones are behind a paywall. Yeah.
That in and of itself is bad. But when you're watching it at the in-laws' house and they have the motion smoothing on, it's like a double whammy of just bad television. But the visuals aside, it was really fun to go back and watch the Alistair Sim one, which I had never seen before we talked about it on the show. So
yeah, that was a good one. That was a cool find. And that probably is the best one. I mean, well, as we discussed, Mickey's Christmas Carol is the best one, but second, I would say.
You know what else I watched at your recommendation is The Muppet Family Christmas, which was a lot of fun.
That's a wonderful forgotten gem that I think everyone should see. It's really great. And really just some really good versions of some songs. I mean, some of my favorite Christmas carols are actually in that show. I think the Muppets do some really good Christmas carols. I mean, their 12 Days of Christmas is the only good version of 12 Days of Christmas, by the way. So
I had a lot of fun watching that.
So, in terms of so we did watch holiday stuff, but I watched a lot of other things. So, I think what we were trying to get at were our wins of the week, or the best thing we saw. I mean, it's been a month, so we saw a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, but I do have to say there is something for me that was kind of the best thing I saw over the course of the break. And I saw, I saw Marty Supreme and saw, all the stuff that was big over the break, over the holiday. But the best thing I think that I saw the entire break was that Netflix show, Death by Lightning, which was about the assassination of James Garfield. Have you even heard this or seen this?
No idea what you're talking about.
That was the most entertaining thing I watched all December, which is crazy to say. But it was fascinating. I mean, and it really plays into the idea that's true, that talks about how few people actually know about Garfield at all, or about his assassination and the person that did it. And that's what the show is about. And it's got an amazing cast. Matthew McFadden from what's that HBO show? Succession. And Michael Shannon plays James Garfield. Betty Gilpin plays his wife. Shea Wiggum, Nick Offerman. Wow. And just a good cast, but no one knows this story, honestly. And I'm consider myself a history buff, and I barely knew half of it. It's only 4 episodes, well worth your time, because again, what it shows is that, history, it always history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And there are so many things in this movie in this show that take place like 1880, that kind of show that, there's really nothing new under the sun. There's always, dastardly people trying to do terrible things. And it's very hard for a person with integrity to really be able to make a mark. And that's kind of what Garfield was. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but he was an unlikely president, someone who wasn't even really trying to be president necessarily. And the way it all goes down is pretty fascinating. And he's trying to fight the New York political machine. But how he gets assassinated is just tragic and insane. And, I think well worth people's time. It's like kind of like a hidden gem. There wasn't a lot of publicity for it, but I think people are slowly coming around to finding it. It's worth your time.
That sounds pretty interesting. Is he the president who, you said he didn't really want to be president? Wasn't that the thing where he just didn't want the office, right? And he was kind of pushed into it a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He went to the convention to actually put up someone else, someone that he knew that asked him to put their name in. But he gave such an impassioned speech at the convention that someone wrote his name in.
Right.
And because Grant couldn't get the votes he needed, the plurality, not the plurality, but the I forget what the word is, but he couldn't get it. There's the win, but then you have to get a certain amount of votes to actually get the nomination, and he couldn't get there. And after vote after vote after vote, eventually people just started putting in Garfield's name, even though he said he didn't want it and he didn't ask to do it, and he didn't put his own name in. And eventually he won. It's really something.
Huh.
Yeah.
I friend of mine, I'll have to ask her if this is who she did it for, but friend of mine is a painter, and she was involved in this show in Portland. It was all presidential art, and we went down to, you're supposed to get down and take the art. It was in this old church. It was kind of very underground, but instead of doing a painting of Garfield, she just painted around the wall, like that kind of mark you have when you take something down, like the mark that's left behind, because he didn't want to be president. So she didn't feel like doing the actual painting of him was the way to go. And I thought it was very clever. That's why I asked about him.
That is pretty interesting. Yeah. But after watching the show, it feels kind of tragic, because it turns out that Garfield was a truly good man who wanted to do good things, and didn't really get the opportunity due to some really stupid things that transpire. So yeah, it's a great little story. So I would love to see more of this, because there's a whole subplot with Chester Arthur and how Chester Arthur becomes his vice president and eventually president after he dies, and that's something I knew nothing about. I didn't know anything about Chester Arthur, and he's played by Nick Offerman, and it's actually pretty wonderful.
Interesting. Did you have any other wins that you wanted to bring up?
Any wins? Well, I saw Marty Supreme, which I liked. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I don't know if I loved it, but I definitely thought it was a really good movie, and it was an enjoyable time. Although, I mean, not a particularly likable main character, depending how you feel about that. But it was a pretty enjoyable movie. But going to see the complete Kill Bill was also really enjoyable. I took my son to go see that because he'd never seen Kill Bill at all, and went to go see that in the theater. And it was really cool. I hadn't seen it in decades, really. And it was nice to see it just in its full 4-hour format, and you get to see it again. I forgot how much fun it is. I mean, as fun as a movie with that much violence and insanity can be, but pretty fun.
I am trying to imagine a teenager sitting through 4 hours in a movie theater without a phone or anybody to talk to.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And that's the thing. The movie is entertaining enough to stay in it. If we had gone to see Gone with the Wind, would he be able to get through it? I don't know. It's hard to say. But Kill Bill is a lot. There's so much going on in it that it never felt long to me. It's a movie that moves.
What did I see over the past month that I wanted to talk about? Not a film, but film related. Again, I have to thank you because you hipped me to this. Laura and I went to the 92nd Street Y to see a retrospective on the life of the songwriter Paul Williams, which was incredibly cool. We had the chance to meet Paul last year, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Laura's become a friend to him. Kind of knowing him, at least a little bit going into this retrospective, was really cool because you kind of knew what it meant to him. And this was in New York at the 92nd Street Y, part of their Lyrics and Lyricists program, which I guess kind of honors songwriters throughout the year. And this one was so cool because it just took these medleys from all of Paul's works, starting with the amazing Phantom of the Paradise, the Brian De Palma film in which he starred. And when I talked to him before, he told me that was like a real highlight because he got to both act and write all the music, which is really cool. And, it moved on to things like he won an Oscar for writing Evergreen from A Star is Born. That was a big deal. He wrote the Love Boat theme, so they performed that. And the setup was they had a troupe of dancers and singers, probably like 4 or 5 people, and they would come out and do the performances. It was hosted by Christian Borle, who I only know from the TV show Smash, but I know he's a big deal on Broadway. It was just really fun because it was like these little segments of Paul Williams's history. And for like 10 or 15 years, this guy wrote everything.
I was going to say, much like James Garfield, I feel like people don't realize a lot about Paul Williams and really how much he did in the 70s, like how many good things he was involved in.
Yeah. And some bad ones. I mean, he was
That's fair.
in the Return of the Planet of the Apes, or whichever one that was, and famously went on Johnny Carson dressed as one of the apes. Also wrote the music for Bugsy Malone, and they had an inordinate amount of music from this film during this show for some reason.
Well, that's become a huge cult classic. I mean, I've had random people tell me how much they love it. So, I mean, and you and I definitely understand this. There are just movies that certain people absolutely love, regardless of how other people feel about them. And Bugsy Malone people love Bugsy Malone.
It's kind of crazy. I don't get it, but great music in it, of course. So he did, well, he didn't do it, but he recently recorded music with Daft Punk and won a Grammy. So they did music from that. Went on to my favorite thing of all time, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which that's one of the things I watch every holiday season. And, we lost our cat Pinky last year in August, and Emmett Otter and his mom and all his friends kind of remind me of her. So when they did this music, I was like a blubbering mess. I was like crying my eyes out. But then they closed with Rainbow Connection. And what was cool is Paul would kind of come out in between sets and talk. And then he would stay on stage sometimes and sing. But he's 85 years old and he just had a major back surgery. So I don't think he has the stamina to be out there all the time. But it was just really, really beautiful to see this man's life, like all of these successes condensed into this like 3 hours, especially after meeting him recently. So that was a big win for me. That happened earlier in December. One other thing I want to mention, which is totally a surprise to me, is Song Sung Blue, the new film from Craig Brewer. Have you seen it?
I have like one movie left in my family movie pass, and we were trying to decide which one to go see. And I've been voting for Song Sung Blue, but we have not seen it yet. One of my kids wanted to see Anaconda, and I was like, we're not going to see that because it seems terrible. But I've been pushing for Song Sung Blue, so help me sell it. Go ahead. Give me the case here.
Okay. So it's surprisingly good. It's directed by Craig Brewer. He did Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, in and of itself, that's shocking, right?
Yeah.
Like when I saw that he did this, I was really surprised.
And he's worked with Eddie Murphy recently he directed Coming to America, Coming #2 America, which I actually hate that title, but Dolomite Is My Name. Did that for Netflix. And this one kind of goes back to the Hustle and Flow scrappiness a little bit, with probably 10 times the budget. I think Hustle and Flow was like $3 million and this was like 30. I assume most of that went, to the talent because it stars Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson. And they play this Neil Diamond tribute band, or interpretation is what they call it in the film, in Wisconsin. And they're called Lightning and Thunder. And they achieve a fair amount of success, at least statewide. And I guess kind of more nationally, because at one point, Hugh Jackman's character, Lightning, I guess, gets a phone call about opening a show in Milwaukee. And it turns out it's Eddie Vedder. So Eddie Vedder wants Lightning and Thunder to open for Pearl Jam. The film is tonally kind of all over the place, especially in the middle. It takes a really dark turn, but there's nothing more egregious than the performance of whoever played Eddie Vedder, because
Really?
as a Pearl Jam fan from like the Mother Love Bone days, seeing this guy do Eddie Vedder was like hurt my soul, a little bit. They kind of ask him to be the most cartoonish version of Ed that you could possibly be. And basically that is like taking Ed from the Even Flow video and turning it up to like 20. So he's like rocking back and forth and has his foot up on the monitor. And it's pretty absurd. And there's actual footage from this where they play together. So Lightning and Thunder have Ed come out and do a song with them, and the footage is Ed just sitting calmly on a stool and like reading the lyrics to this Neil Diamond song on a music stand. But in the film, he's portrayed as like one step away from hanging from the lighting rig. So it's really, really absurd. But that aside, it's just a really fun movie, though it does take a big dark turn in the middle that kind of like comes from out of nowhere. But, you know, with all dramas, you kind of have the highs and then you hit the low and maybe you come back to another high. But also want to shout out the supporting cast, which is Jim Belushi, who is leaning into a Chicago accent I haven't heard since the Bears guys on SNL. It's quite hilarious. Fisher Stevens plays Hugh Jackman's agent, I guess, but he's also his dentist. So it shows you how like ragtag this group kind of is. And Michael Imperioli plays a Buddy Holly impersonator.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So this is what you get with this film. And I was not expecting it to be as fun as it was. Also, the cinematographer is Amy Vincent, who worked on Hustle and Flow, worked on Black Snake Moan. And, you know, you really have to be good to shoot a concert and do it in a way that's like kind of intimate. And she does a great job with it. Highly recommend seeing this in theaters if you can, because of the concert performances. I find that, you know, like if you watch something like that on TV, it's not as impactful as, it's almost like you're at a concert if you go to a theater. Just like not 4 stars, but close to it for me. I really, really had a lot of fun, and
that's good to
tell
hear.
your family.
Yeah, we had seen the trailer for it, and my youngest son was actually like, I think he's like, we should go see this. And so it's been on my back burner. But I wanted to know a little more about it. And I'm trying to convince the other two that we should all go see it. So we'll see how it goes.
Just play,
because God knows there's not much else that's out that's worth seeing anyways.
Well, I mean, you have to hold out for that new Statham movie that comes out at the end of January, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a family movie, but you know that I'm going to see it.
All right, well, let's move on to our matchup for the week. I'm very excited because this is such a new thing. And I brought this pairing to the show because it feels kind of obvious to me. I mean, Heat is like the GOAT of bank robber movies, and it feels like The Town and everything after kind of trying to pay homage to it or just directly rip it off. But I went into this thinking like Heat is the OG, The Town just wants to be Heat. In my recollection, The Town was just a direct ripoff of Heat. But what I found in watching it again is like they're wildly different while being the same. They're like the Vincent Hanna and Neil McCauley of bank robbery movies, like 2 sides of the same coin. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it, and it's going to be a lot closer for my vote for which one's better than I thought it would be.
I'm glad, because coming in, I know that you had strong feelings about The Town, but I guess in re-seeing it, yeah, I had some surprising takes of my own. I think when I rewatched both, back to back. So yeah, I'm happy to say my initial takes as watching. I mean, I think I love this pairing because in a way, what you're seeing with Heat is a director, like a writer director, kind of reaching a mountaintop, so to speak. I mean, besides the fact that Heat is actually a remake of his own script that he already had. I mean, made the LA Takedown back in the 80s, but he didn't think that was good enough, and always kind of had this idea of wanting to do it in a larger way, change the ending.
That was an NBC movie of the week.
Right. There was supposed to be a TV show that ended up not working out. But so this is kind of the project that Mann is had that he's been wanting to make forever. It's the epic he's always been trying to make. And obviously he'd been working for decades. And I just feel like Heat is kind of the culmination of all of the work that he had put in. And, just kind of like the movie you think of when you think of Michael Mann. Even though it's not my favorite Michael Mann movie, by the way. We'll get into that later. Maybe. And with the Town, what you see is the work of a very young director, a writer and director. And someone wearing their influences on their sleeve, so to speak. I mean, that's really what you're getting from the Town. So it's nice to see these 2 people at 2 completely different parts of their careers and what they put out. So it's just very different ways of approaching the work, and you can see similarities, but yeah, the filmmakers themselves kind of show through in the movies as you're watching them. And I think that's something that really jumped out at me as I was watching them again so close together.
It jumped out at me as well. I mean, you have Mann, and Heat is pretty typical Michael Mann, right? It's like guys who are really thrown into their work that kind of supersedes everything else, and the rest of their lives sort of fall apart around it.
I just love that Michael Mann mostly just makes movies about guys that are obsessed with their work, knowing that Michael Mann is the most obsessed with his own work as any director has ever been. So I guess that makes perfect sense.
Everything's like an autobiography, basically. I don't know if he's married or not. I can't. I would assume he's had multiple wives because of his dedication to his work, but I'm not sure. And I think that kind of theme of, like, in this case, crime as a profession and like the cost of it, you have in both films, and that's sort of what I was thinking before I rewatched The Town. Is like, oh, it has, the guy who's focused on crime can't get out of it, and everything else suffers. But that's not necessarily the case with The Town. I think it does a great job of that. Well, I'll say that these two are like, they're like the Magic versus Larry Bird matchups in the 80s, right? Like East Coast, West Coast. And what I love is Mann's version of the story is meditative and sprawling in Los Angeles, whereas Affleck's version in Boston is so compact and like everything's tight, and it's not as isolated. It's more about like community, because everybody does this, and that's kind of the point. He can't get out of this lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a really great observation, and you're right. I was going to say, even though Michael Mann grew up in Chicago, I mean, he's kind of considered the ultimate LA filmmaker. I mean, he kind of made that his base of operations, and he makes very LA movies and finds things that only he can find within LA. I mean, they like to talk about, even in Heat, like how many of those locations are locations that no one had ever shot in before. So you have a director who is so associated with the idea of making of what LA is, and of course in Affleck, you very much have a person associated with Massachusetts and Boston. So in a way, that's the same thing as well. Like, you have these two filmmakers making movies in the places that they are most associated with, they know really well, and that comes through. Yeah, I mean, there's those kind of similarities. I did think this, though, that the Town kind of rips off from Heat. But what I thought was, I remember reading that Heat actually had a big influence on Nolan making the Batman movies, and particularly The Dark Knight. And so almost what it feels like to me, though, is that Nolan ripped off Michael Mann making Heat to make The Dark Knight. And then Affleck actually ripped off The Dark Knight, which was influenced by Heat, to make The Town. It's like once removed. It's almost like a once removed ripoff, but it's there. Like the trajectory is there.
Yeah, I think everything after Heat, it reminds me a little bit of like how in the 90s after Pulp Fiction, everything was like a copy of a copy of a copy of Pulp Fiction. And the farther away you got from the original, like kind of the weaker it got. And I think you see that with these bank robbery films too, with Heat being the original. I can't think of a film before it that has the impact of it.
I was going to ask you that if you could think of it, because there's a lot of movies about cops and robbers, and of course going back to the beginning of movies. But yeah, it's hard to think of a movie like Heat that was made before Heat, where the criminal and the cop get almost equal time, and you explore their worlds in such a deep way, almost as mirror images of each other. And of course, there have always been some stories like that again, but I'm having a hard time thinking of one that is told in this way, in that parallel way.
Something that might come close. I mean, there are bank robbery films before Heat, of course, and I think I was going to talk later about like how Heat and The Town. The Heat is a very different Boston movie. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. How they kind of fit into the top 5 of bank robbery films, and I can think of one. I'll just say Dog Day Afternoon comes to mind when you think of like bank robbery films.
Well, exactly, but that's what I mean. Dog Day Afternoon is a movie about bank robbery.
Right.
But it's much more about the bank robbers. I don't think that the cops pursuing it, I mean, mostly because it's a standoff as well. you're getting much more about the criminals than you are about the cops. The cops are just kind of faceless cops almost. There just to kind of deal with the situation. Whereas in Heat, what you're getting is an exploration really of the philosophies, the life philosophies of these two people. Well, not just two people, but all of them, the cops and the criminals. I think it goes much deeper into who they are and why they are the way that they are, as opposed to other ones in the past where it feels like one of the two, like, Dirty Harry is a movie about a cop and there's criminal stuff, but you don't know that much about the criminals. They don't matter. Whereas this gives you just as much about both.
Well, and I think that's Mann's point is like, and you see it all over his work with from Collateral to Miami Vice. Like there's a thin line between good and bad, and the people on both sides of it aren't all that different. So yeah, that's definitely something you're going to get in a Mann film that you're probably not going to get elsewhere. And the town is very much just straight up cat and mouse with the John Hamm character and the Affleck character. So you don't really have that meditation on like the soul of man and goodness. And I mean, that's kind of what makes Heat so great, is that it's bank robbery. It's extended shootouts that are very like sort of mechanical and loud, but it's also quiet and reflective. And I think that's really portrayed very well by the setting of Los Angeles. I mean, especially in Neil's apartment, like his whole like code of ethics is like just be minimal and don't have attachments.
No furniture, just that blue light that kind of puts a haze over everything.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you're definitely getting something there that you're not going to get in really any other bank robbery films. The only one after it that I might think about in that context, not to the same degree, is Den of Thieves, where you have the Gerard Butler cop, going against these criminals. You kind of have equal time for both. It's not as philosophical, but I mean, you're kind of like, they're both anti-heroes in a way. So I never thought I'd be comparing Den of Thieves to Heat, but
that's a good pull. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly,
it's like, it's like Heat interpreted through Jason Statham gets you Den of Thieves. That's kind of like, yeah.
That's what we have now, until Heat 2 comes out. We have to lean into Den of Thieves for quality bank heist films. Yeah, we talked about the duality of Heat, and there really isn't that as much in the town. It's very cops and robbers, and what's something that is kind of common between them is like, in a way, the precision of these crews and how it talks about like crime as a profession. And in Heat, it's so methodical. And like, would anybody do that if it weren't Michael Mann? And they have like military precision when it comes to that shootout. Like they know how to cover one another and do this and that. Whereas the town is more like, they're just buddies and they know what they're doing. But if it comes to like a gunfight like that, they don't have that military training. So
yeah, obviously in the I mean, they both have huge shootouts.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see that one is definitely handled in a more precision way than the other. That's obvious. But yeah, you're right. In terms of the difference between a Michael Mann movie and a different movie, that what I read that surprised me, but I mean, not really, is that after Heat, there were a bunch of like money truck robberies that basically follow the exact same way that they did it. And he was so good at showing you how criminals rob things that other criminals stole from that and just did what they did in the movie. And it worked because it was so meticulously studied. And what I heard too is that in the shootout that they used Val Kilmer reloading his weapon in that shootout scene. They used that in like an army training video. Well, yeah, or the Marines or something. And they were like, if you can't load a mag as fast as this guy, then you shouldn't be here. And it's like, that is how much they practiced and how good they were at that. You're actually using them to train soldiers of how quickly they load weapons. So yeah, that's what you get when you're working with Michael Mann.
Yeah, you become an expert on whatever you're pretending to be an
And that's what
expert
he
on.
wanted. And I think that was really enlightening too, because I was listening to something that he was talking about. And he talked about that one scene in the diner where, they slam that guy's, De Niro slams that guy's head on the table. And
Waingro.
they have someone, Wingro, they have someone look over at the table. And Sizemore's character kind of leans over and looks at that guy.
Yeah.
And just stares him down. And Michael Mann's feeling is that is the look of a person totally in control. And the reason he was able to look that way is that they had trained so much and done so much weapons training and so much work that the Sizemore's confidence to kind of give that dead stare comes from his own belief in the knowledge that he has, that he actually becomes that person. And so it's like, that is why he trains these people so much that becomes second nature, that it's just part of ingrained into how they perform the character, which I thought was a really interesting insight, that you do the work so much that you gain the confidence of what the character should have. And that is how the person acts.
It's like you're forced to be a method actor if you work with Michael Mann.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That scene is another great example of like the precision that crew has. Like you mentioned Sizemore, he gets up, goes to the counter, you see Trejo leave. It's like they all know where they're supposed to be when Waingro comes in. So like even down to sitting in a diner, well, I mean, they're about to execute him. So I guess it's like a plan they have to act out, but it's like a shorthand that they have that you don't see in the town outside of going into a bank. Like in the bank, they're so meticulous with the bleach and putting the phones in water and everything. But once you're outside of that, it kind of falls apart. And I think
will
that's
say
a big
though,
difference.
I was just say it's the one part that kind of jumped out at me, and maybe I'm not going to say a false note. I know how much time and effort they put into trying to get all this stuff right, but for a crew that's so careful in what they do and so precision, the fact that he would take his eye off Waingro when he sees the cop, like I would think at the very least he would have put his boot like on his neck to keep him there, like to know that he was still there. I feel like that's the only thing that felt like it had to happen for the movie to work. But I think in reality, he would have made sure that he had that guy pinned down in some way.
And how far would he have gotten in that time? I mean, 5 guys looking for him.
Yeah, it's fair. But he could slip between cars or, who knows? It's hard to say. But yeah.
The only other thing in Heat that I feel is akin to that might be like a little ding against it is what leads up to the iconic shootout is that Vincent, the Pacino character, is like at the police station. I think he's at the police station, gets a call that the bank is being robbed. And from the time it takes whoever it was, like Val Kilmer maybe or Sizemore, I don't remember, to get from like the middle of the bank to the front door, Pacino's already there or like en route on the same street. That's a matter of like 5 seconds. So that's kind of like tough to overlook because that leads to such a big thing. But, it's a 3-hour movie. So you're going to have something in there that might miss a little bit. But that's one minor thing out of 3 hours that is just an incredible watch. Big thing that makes it so incredible to watch: the actors. This is famously the first time De Niro and Pacino are on screen together. That's like electric. And I was watching this time the lead up to that, the chase with like Pacino getting in the helicopter, like the music, the cuts, like they're building so much tension to get to that scene. It's like masterful. And, De Niro, what are you going to say? His filmography is always like kind of hit or miss. And this year is a hit.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I was thinking a lot about this. I said that it's kind of like the ultimate Michael Mann movie, in the mid 90s. But what you also see is that for Pacino and De Niro, this mid 90s period, I mean, they're still peak performers. I mean, they're still considered peak performers. That's why them being in this movie together and that scene together is so electric. If you look at their filmographies up to this point, I mean, they've both been working about 20 years. But the movies that they make, they're making fewer movies, but they have greater impact, like a movie every couple of years or something. And if you look at the ratio, I mean, they're both batting about 800.
Yeah.
If you look over the course of what they've done up to that point. And after Heat, and particularly from 2000 on, the batting average gets closer to like 400. And so you look at Heat as kind of like this ultimate moment for the two of them as well. I just think that the work started to suffer as they got older, partially because they were still trying to play parts of younger men, which brings me to Righteous Kill, which was the only other movie they made together.
Yeah.
And that is just a god-awful movie for many, many reasons. But part of it is that I think they're both too old to be playing the parts that they're playing. And I think that's part of it too. So they're both kind of still getting cast as the people they used to be. But they're also I think they're just doing too much work. And then the work starts to suffer. And I can't blame them for that. It made me think about Springsteen, as I usually think about Springsteen about most things. But yeah, think about how few records he put out up to a certain point, because he was incredibly meticulous about the work he wanted to put out. But I think, like with most people, you get to be a certain age, you get older, and you realize you only have so much time left. And you think, I don't want to waste this time, so I'm going to do more work. And you can see the output that Springsteen had from like 2005 on. I mean, the amount of stuff he releases, even stuff from the vaults, is an incredible clip based on the previous 30 years he had worked, right? And that's how I think of Pacino and De Niro. You look at the work they did in the 2000s, some of them making like 4 movies a year at one point. And it's like, there's no way you can make great movies when you're working at that clip. You're just kind of working to work, I think. I think they just wanted to be working. And take nothing away from them. Everybody's allowed to do that. That's fair. But once the 2000s hit, you get maybe 1 out of every 5 movies is something that's really worth seeing.
Yeah, I'd say of the two, De Niro has the better batting average post 2000.
Yeah, that's probably true. Although he's made some. So I actually pinpointed it when he made Rocky and Bullwinkle, I think in 2000. That was the moment where you're like, oh, De Niro has decided that we're going to do something different now. And it spins off in a different place. But yeah, you're right.
I would say for Pacino, maybe that's Jack and Jill in 2011.
I mean, that was that wasn't just when it spun out. That's when the car went straight off the road into a ditch and burst into flame. I mean, that's a completely different thing.
I mean, he made Ocean's 13 a couple years before that. So he still has his head in the game a little bit, but he was in Geely, for God's sake. That Pacino decision-making machine, I don't know.
Like I said, I think that's just partially wanting to do the work, deciding that you want to keep working and you'll take whatever, and that's what you see. But he also made Danny Collins, which I think is a pretty underrated movie. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought he was really good in it. So, as I said, like 1 out of every 5 movies is probably worth watching.
I think Pacino, he won the Oscar for Scent of a Woman to 92, 93.
92.
And that locked him in. Now he was crazy Al Pacino.
Yeah. Well, so here's something. I don't know if you read this, but I read this and it was like the Rosetta Stone for me. That what he said is that what he and Michael Mann had talked about and worked out about his character in this movie, it's not in the script, but something they kind of decided amongst the two of them, that they think that his character was on cocaine.
Oh yeah, and he was.
And the minute I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like that, finally everything makes sense. Like once you know that, but you also realize every character Pacino played from 92 to 98 apparently was on cocaine. That makes everything make sense. Now everything makes more sense to me. I mean, and the thing is, just to give Pacino credit, I mean, so that's the choice made for that character. But don't forget, 4 years later, he makes The Insider with Michael Mann, which I actually like more than Heat. And I know that seems crazy. I really love The Insider. I think it's a phenomenal movie. But the choices Pacino makes in The Insider are completely different.
Right.
There's none of that. There's no latent cocaine addiction in the part he plays in The Insider, right?
He still has it. Yeah.
So he still has it. Like, I mean, so it's not just that he's doing Scent of a Woman. I mean, he's still making choices per role. I think he just chose to be on cocaine characters for about 7 years. So yeah, credit where credit is due, but it explains so much because we could spend hours just discussing every line Pacino delivers in Heat, which is,
and we'll talk about them later on because when something we're going to do at the end of the show is ask some questions to help us determine which film is better, and that'll definitely play into it. There was one scene, I think I read this or I saw it on a video or something, where he actually was on cocaine in Heat, and it's the great ass scene where he ad-libbed that whole thing. You hear Hank Azaria's like genuine reaction. That scene, he was juiced up.
See, you stole my thing. We were going to talk about our favorite lines, and I was going to.
Oh,
I was like, that is number one for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's yeah. Well, we'll get into it.
It comes out of nowhere, and you're like, wait, what is happening right now?
Yeah. There's so many lines that come from out of nowhere in this film for Al Pacino's character. I think one of the things, despite those two heavyweights, one of the things that really props Heat up over The Town is the supporting characters. And I mean, you just have some star power here. Val Kilmer, as we mentioned, Tom Sizemore, Ashley Judd, even Tone Loc, who makes a little appearance. All of them are just on fire in this. I mean, we know Ashley Judd is in a Michael Mann film, so she's not going to have a lot to do, but she is very solid. Sizemore, this is peak Sizemore, I think. And you're right. We might talk about that more later, but he's like pitch perfect in this.
So hang on. Here is where I'm going to sit and partially disagree with you. I do think the Heat cast is phenomenal, but I think that the ensemble for The Town is pretty underrated. I think if you look at the cast, it is a much stronger cast than I even remembered. I mean, because you have like kind of a peak John Hamm moment where he was just kind of coming into his own in that moment. I mean, Blake Lively, I think she does a pretty good job in that movie, but she wasn't exactly Blake Lively that we know now at that time.
Man, we are really throwing down on The Town.
Yeah, we are the downtown. Titus Welliver, I think is pretty underrated actor who's actually worked on every Ben Affleck movie. They've actually worked together. Chris Cooper's in it. Pete Postlewhite's in it. It's got a pretty strong supporting cast. Of course, it has those two other guys in the crew or people I've never heard of, but they just need two extra Boston guys, and they got those guys. But I thought Rebecca Hall was really good. I think it was a surprisingly strong cast, stronger than I had. Not the Heat though. Not Heat. It's not a Heat cast, but it was pretty good.
I agree that on paper the Town cast is outstanding, but when you look at the performances, that's where I kind of fall off a little bit because Affleck in particular is fine. He's good as a lead. He actually gets Batman off of this essentially because Zack Snyder sees it and thinks he would be a good Batman. For some reason, this guy from Boston has one of the most cartoonish Boston accents I've ever heard. I mean, everything. So I love Ben Affleck.
Couldn't you say the same thing about his character in Good Will Hunting? So
that's what I was going to say is like, I love Ben Affleck as a director, but every time I see him in a movie, I always think he's bringing the energy that his character Chucky brought in Good Will Hunting when he pretends to be a lawyer. That's what I feel like every Ben Affleck performance is. I really go like hot and cold with him on screen, leaning toward cold most of the time. Behind the camera, we'll talk about it.
I think maybe you just see him that way. I think The Town is pretty subtle by comparison. I think the scenes with Rebecca Hall are really good. I actually think he underplays a lot of those scenes. See, this is why we're doing this new format. I think I'll throw it down a little bit. I appreciated Ben Affleck's acting in The Town more than I remembered.
I agree. But
also, as a side note, just to say, Ben Affleck's track jacket game is unimpeachable in this movie.
I made notes.
Dude has exceptional track jackets. There's no doubt about it. So
Bruins in the first scene, Red Sox in the second scene. My note was like, when are we going to see the Celtics jacket?
Then he has the sweet Adidas track jacket as well. I mean, he's got some nice track jacket action going on.
That had to be a Boston local who was the costume designer for that film. I mean, ideal. That's maybe something we should have talked about. There's not much of a costume discussion to talk about in Heat, but boy, in The Town.
Although I will say for Heat, we did Collateral a little while ago and talked about all the thought that went into the suit that Tom Cruise's character wears in that movie. But isn't it the same suit that De Niro's character is wearing in Heat? So why did they take so much discussion to essentially do the same suit? It looks very similar.
I think Michael Mann wanted to save that costume money to wet down the streets for the night shots. And so he's like, well, let's just dig De Niro's suit out of mothballs and put it on Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and if you think about it, those characters are actually pretty similar. Now that I think about it, it hadn't hit me, but
well, sure, they're Michael Mann characters.
Yeah, they're both very similar in how they go about their business and the way they look and the way. Yeah,
and that's kind of the crux of both of those films in a way. I mean, well, maybe not Collateral so much, but it's about, like, I thought about The Killer a lot because I always do, but in watching Heat, because it's a matter of, like, he lives by a code, the code goes out the window and things go south. Like, once he starts letting things in. By the way, the Neil McCauley character would kill it in the manosphere. Like, he would be on every podcast. He would have like best-selling books with this philosophy of his.
His Instagram My Routine would be just millions of views.
It's like, wake up, eat my oatmeal, wash my one dish, like go to put on my suit.
Put on my one suit.
Yeah. Gotta talk about Jeremy Renner in the town, because he is outstanding. I have an argument that this is like the end of the road for Jeremy Renner, but he's coming off of this. He gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this. He loses to Christian Bale, right, for The Fighter. And, the year before, he gets nominated as Best Actor for
Hurt Locker.
Not Zero Dark 30, Hurt Locker. That's a solid run of 2 years, 2 really good films. He's like just wiry in this. He stands out. And the next year he would make the cameo in Thor, and that starts the Marvel trajectory where he plays like the dullest character you could possibly play.
Well, see,
and I think that affects him.
As we said before, and we talked about Jeremy Renner at one point, I think when we do Mission Impossible,
Wind River, which is the outlier later on for me.
So I don't necessarily think that his work suffered. And we talked about this. I think what happens is that after Hurt Locker and after The Town, everyone decides that he should be a leading man, but particularly an action leading man. And that's where we end up, where he ends up in Mission Impossible. They try to give him, the Bourne movies once they start segueing, Matt Damon out of that. And I think they put him into a place that he doesn't belong. I just never thought that Jeremy Renner is your typical leading man. He just wasn't how he's built. And so I don't think the work is bad. I actually don't even mind his Hawkeye. I thought Hawkeye was fine within the ensemble. He does the work he's supposed to do. But I just think it definitely takes away from what he is best at, which is just this almost like a chameleonish kind of character actor who gives really strong performances, but isn't necessarily going to hold the center of a movie. But again, you can't argue at all. You're going to take your shot. If someone's going to offer you those roles, you're going to take them, and you're going to roll the dice and see where it goes. So he spends about 5 years playing that game, and I think he ends up probably where he should be. I think he's really good on that show, Mayor of Kingstown. Yeah, I think he's really good in that show. So I think it just took him a while to get back to where he needed to be. But who's going to argue with taking that Marvel money? And if they want to give you action movie franchises, you're gonna take them. So it's hard to argue against it. But yeah, I don't know if the work suffered as much as it's just the choice of roles put a spotlight on what he doesn't do well. Put it that way.
I think the roles definitely don't help, but trying to put him into the Mission Impossible franchise, like, just give it to him with a different story. You don't put him in Ethan Hunt's story next to Tom Cruise and have to have a two-hander with him. You're not going to survive that, especially with Tom Cruise, who always wants to bring someone else in, like with Top Gun Maverick, and then decides, I'll stick with it and I'll keep going. But, and you have some outliers for me, like Wind River and Arrival. But I mean, the energy is like, you go to the comedy where he plays the straight man, The House with Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler, or Tag with John Hamm. It's like he's dead serious, and he's like, that's where the comedy is. He's the straight guy. And it's just like those things and the Clint character in Marvel are just, to me, super boring. And even in this new Ryan Johnson movie, Wake Up Dead Man, I think he's horribly miscast. I mean, it's not memorable at all.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. He definitely miscast in that movie,
especially when you put it next to The Town. I mean, he's electric in this. He's the guy who sticks out, you know.
And interestingly enough, he didn't really want to take this movie because he didn't want to play a bad guy. So I think, again, you know, choices that we make, I think he would have been much better pursuing some bad roles, some bad guy roles, which he was surprisingly good at.
Should be in some of those De Niro or Pacino movies that are a little lower than the higher ones. Maybe that would liven things up for him a little bit. You gotta talk about John Hamm in The Town. I mean, he's like the number 3 basically, or really the number 2. I mean, he's the Al Pacino role without the contemplation. And this is kind of early on in the Mad Men run for him, so his star is rising. What did you think of him in this film? You kind of alluded to it, but you think he did a good job?
I think he was excellent in this movie, and I think it was a good choice for him because, you know, the Mad Men character is so indelible and connected to him in that way, and playing this cop role, kind of like an everyman kind of role, I think suited him really well. It was a good choice. It showed that he had more range than what we had just seen on Mad Men. So, yeah, I actually forgot that he was the number 2 in this movie. So, I mean, I'd only seen it once. I hadn't seen it in like 12 years. So, yeah, I was surprised at how good he was in this movie.
I kind of saw it as him acclimating to that role now, coming off of TV and smaller parts. This is kind of really the first big thing post Mad Men success. And even Mad Men wasn't like at its peak when this came out. But does it lower your opinion to know that this is the same year he made a cameo in the A-Team as the stooge at the end with no name?
I mean, that's one of the only really good parts in that whole movie too. So I don't know.
And, you know, he's kind of typecast this year because here he plays the FBI, and the A-Team, he's like, I guess, CIA or some kind of like quiet operative. Also plays an FBI agent on The Simpsons this year. So he's really like leaning into that
it's
role.
The voice. It's definitely the voice, that authoritative voice that he has. The same reason he does those Mercedes-Benz commercials, I think. He's just lends it. And just got an authoritative voice.
Just the square jaw and the beautiful handsomeness of John Hamm. The love interest in this, Rebecca Hall, bringing a little more, I think, than Amy Brenneman brings in Heat, because there's a little more to it. She's a little more involved. But possibly the best accent in the film because she's British doing an American accent. I really love her. I think she's great in just about everything I see, except for that Watson and Holmes movie with Will Ferrell. But she's just sensational. There's actually a scene where she almost identically does the same thing that Ashley Judd does in Heat when Val Kilmer rolls up and she brushes her hand. So there's like a direct one-to-one that shows you kind of what Heat means to The Town. And did you watch the director's cut of The Town?
I did not.
So there's apparently a scene where Heat is actually on a television in the background. So
get out.
You know, they're showing their influences here.
Yeah, as I said before, like I do kind of appreciate that. I think that, you know, as an early director, we talked about like what should early directors do to help them succeed. I mean, one is that you film in a place that you're comfortable. You make a movie in a place that you know really well. And, you know, Affleck does that back to back. I mean, both of his first 2 movies basically take place in Boston. I'm pretty sure Gone Baby Gone also takes place around there. So yeah. So, you know, that's how you get acclimated to taking on big directing jobs. You go to a place that you feel comfortable. And I think it's a great idea. But also, yeah, an early director, you're going to see a little more of them wearing their influences on their sleeves. And I don't think he tried to hide it necessarily. And Heat being on the TV, I think just kind of shows you in a good natured way. He gets it. He knows that, you know, and it's not a problem. It's like, well, why not? Why not steal from the best? If you're going to steal from the best. So just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like you have to nod to it. Like, I feel like every film we've mentioned so far should have Heat on a TV somewhere in the film. It's because it's just always there.
Yeah, 4-person crew, the masks. I mean, all of it kind of all ties together.
Yeah. Talking about the directing, I mean, Michael Mann is like one of one. He's a maniac, although David Fincher probably gives him a run for his money with like precision and meticulousness. But yeah, when you look at the direction of these films, both, to my surprise in the rewatch, are outstanding. I mean, we talk about Affleck wearing his influences on his sleeve, and he's fully formed. I think coming out of the gate with Gone Baby Gone, he was like outstanding as a director. If you hear interviews with him, or if you watch that J-Lo documentary, you hear him talking about the minute details of film and camera lenses and all of that. So he's really all in on it. And that comes through. I mean, rewatching The Town, I was really blown away by how well it was directed. Because I think about, to go from the compact streets of Boston. Like, I've spent time in both of these cities, and I know that it's a very different experience driving on the roads in them. And the idea of taking a car chase through these super narrow streets of old Boston, and the work that would go into setting up those shots and like executing that takes a vision, and it takes a lot of skill to do that. And then, Fenway Park, like securing that and shooting something there, so many logistics, and he blows me away every time I see him as a director.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, just thinking about what it took to actually get Fenway to be able to film at Fenway, and that may just be because he's someone so connected to Boston, they wouldn't let him shoot there. But yeah, pulling that off, the logistics of even doing it. I'm trying to think of other movies that even filmed at iconic stadiums. I don't think
Fever Pitch.
Oh God, well, yeah,
we forget that one.
Forget that ever happened. But on a side note, speaking of the Red Sox and his love of it, there's one throwaway line in the movie. Actually, we're going to talk about lines later, right? So we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, I found the cinematography I mean, Michael Mann's cinematography is always unbelievable. It's the editing too, like it's all over the place, but it's so amazing the way it all comes together.
So that I don't think about camera lenses and things as much as you do. So you're much better at this than I am. But even for me, even for a fool like me, the camera lens choices of heat kind of stand out, because a lot of it is kind of wide angle lenses, and so there's always, even the way it's filmed is you're either kind of at a distance, everyone's always kind of looking at someone from a distance in a surveillance way, or you have these shots of people in like really close up scenes, like within these giant frames. Two things that are obviously done on purpose to make you think about the idea of distance and the idea of the inner life as you're watching the movie subconsciously. So even I got that. So that's
there's no middle ground. It's always like wide and meditative, or it's like tight and sort of tense. And the cinematographer was Dante Spinati, who worked with Mann on a bunch of other things. What I find interesting is that we closed out last year with Moving Violations, the film that I brought to our Rewatch and Reconsider series. So we ended that year, and we're beginning this year with Robert Elswit behind the camera. He was a cinematographer on The Town. So you can see the similarities cinematically between The Town and Moving Violations.
Absolutely. Everything he learned in Moving Violations, he brought to The Town. You can see it.
That's right. I mean, legendary cinematographer. I mean, there's Deakins, and then there's like Elswit and Liebetek and everybody else. But it just, he's responsible for Boogie Nights, Magnolia, like so many amazing things. And again, this is like they're similar and different, because what Mann and Spinati do wide, The Town does so tightly, and both are just incredible. So this is a tough thing to think about, this matchup, and I'm kind of excited to keep going with it. But when you talk about iconic scenes, things that are memeable, this is where it gets fun, because you're not online social media like I am, so you don't see memes or anything, but you don't see too many memes from the town, but you hands down see a million memes from Heat. So, are there any scenes that are iconic for you that just stand out
You mean from Heat or from both
from
movies?
Heat? Well, or from both, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody thinks about the diner scene as being the most iconic of iconic scenes. But for me, it's really the shots that stay with me in Heat are, and these are not memeable, which again is probably why I don't do social media. But it's just those wide shots of LA. Like I love those kind of sprawling shots that put you in place, but also kind of give you the isolating factor of how anonymous LA can be. I think that Michael Mann does that incredibly well. And what I recognize too when I watch it again is how he uses background, and in some ways how he kind of fuzzes out the background to make the person come to the foreground. Like all those little choices that he makes. I find that stuff, I know for some reason I notice it more when on the films that he makes, maybe because he just does it better than other people. Um, so so it's not really the scenes, the look of the scenes. It's those scenes I think about in terms of shooting. Everything else is dialogue related, or just really how lines are delivered. Mostly by Pacino, which is what stays with me. So
Yeah. Well, when you talk about memeability, I mean, almost every line Al Pacino has is something that you could go online and find a GIF of because it's so nuts. I mean, what's your we talked about the scene where he's on cocaine, but
yeah,
what are your
just the way he comes out, he's like, "She's got a great ass!" Like out of nowhere, you're like, "What? What just happened there?" Or the line where he throws it away, where he's like, "You can get killed walking your doggy." I'm like, was that line in the script, or did he just throw that out? Like I've spent way more time than I should thinking about if those lines were in the script, or if he's just, I don't know, he's just pulling this out of nowhere. Because it keeps you and the other actor completely off kilter.
Yeah.
Like I'm not really sure how I was supposed to be reacting to this scene. I don't understand.
If you break down some of the more memorable lines and you think about them on paper, they make sense. They're like normal lines. Like, oh, well, we have something, Vincent. What do we got? What do we got? But Pacino is like, what do we got? And it's like, oh, okay, you've Al Pacino'd this basic line that has, some meaning, but now it has energy to it.
Yeah, the thing with Pacino is, yeah, all you think about is his delivery of lines. For De Niro, I think this is peak De Niro stare. That he's always been great. I mean, he's always had great looks in almost all his movies. Like he's got a look that he gives people at certain points in the movies. But this one, I think, is peak De Niro stare. Like he has so many like just slight adjustments to his facial expression, or he looks at certain people in certain ways, and that means certain things. Like I don't think there's anybody better at that, especially at this period of time. I mean, obviously as he gets older, it gets a little more, like anything, gets a little worn down. But here, like the way he stares, and I always think about it again, the diner scene, like the subtle way he changes his facial expressions in certain points is just really, really impressive work. He says so much while saying nothing.
Oh yeah, the Heat, very memeable. The diner scene, iconic. I mean, people talk about it all the time in relation to the film. That's like the big thing they think about. The shootout is incredible because it's just like pure gunfire for like 20 minutes and inspired like real life bank robbers to go try to enact that. Do you remember that in LA?
I do.
Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
It was like terrifying to watch that on TV. These guys in full like flak jackets and bulletproof, like head to toe bulletproof, and apparently inspired by this film. So that's kind of art or life imitating art. I guess.
Not exactly the best legacy for Heat, but it's there.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff around it too. But those are kind of the two most memorable scenes, I think, and Pacino endlessly memeable. The town, Other than the nun masks, I can't really think of anything that, if I think about that movie, sticks out to me.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing because again, you're making your second movie. You're not trying to make things that stand out just to stand out. I think everything works within the context of the movie and doesn't need to be flashy. So I'm okay with that. The one line that I love in the town, and this is just for me, maybe as a baseball nerd, but again, it proves to me how much thought kind of went into the setting, but also how much of Boston is in Affleck and the co-writer of the movie, or when they're taking the money and throwing it in the truck, he say, the last one who robbed the Red Sox like this was Jack Clark,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a line that probably means nothing to almost anyone.
Right.
But if you grew up in the 80s and you remember that Clark signed with the Red Sox in 91 and was a dog for them, I mean, that is just a great kind of like, we know exactly where we are and who these characters are.
Yeah.
That you would remember that. I kind of love that.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know who that was, but I knew that it was a line that
Well,
is...
the reason I remember Jack Clark is because as a Mets fan in the 80s, Cardinals were just despicable. And Jack Clark played for the Cardinals. So I always hated that guy. And I remember him leaving to sign with the Red Sox. So that's the only reason it kind of stuck out to me. Normally, I don't even think I would have remembered.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I know, I get the point of the reference, but I don't actually know the reference. And it's funny either way. But let's talk about the cultural context and the footprint of these films, because we talked about them both being sort of in the Hall of Fame for bank robbery films. And, there aren't a lot of those, but everything that I can think of, other than, like we said, Dog Day Afternoon, kind of comes after it, after Heat and Den of Thieves, of course. But Hell or High Water is like the only other one I can think of.
Well, I'll give you one.
Yeah.
I think Inside Man is easily a top 5 bank heist movie.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe top 3 for me. I love that movie. There's so much in it, and again, I think when you get a really what's the word I'm looking for, like a fully formed filmmaker could take a bank heist movie and put themselves into it. So it's like you watch Heat and you see the Michael Mann. It's a Michael Mann movie, and Inside Man can only be made by Spike Lee. There's certain things in that movie that are very Spike Lee. And, for Affleck, I mean, he doesn't really have, even though he's fully formed, like he doesn't have a recognizable style yet, which is fine. But again, you know that movie is being made by a person that understands the setting of that movie as well as anyone.
Right. Yeah, that was the other one that I thought of, but I forgot to mention. And it's kind of a compact genre. There aren't a lot of bank heist films, but the ones that are centered around that. I mean, you have The Dark Knight, which opens with that, but these films kind of revolve around it, and the only ones I can think of are the only ones that are like the top 5. So I think both of these sort of have their place in the world. Like Heat obviously is more memorable, recognizable, influential. So I don't know that there's even a question like which one has the staying power through the culture, but that's kind of like why we ask these questions that we're going to talk about in a minute, because at the end of every episode, we're going to get to where we are right now. And then we have 5 questions we're going to ask each time and try to see if they can help us determine which is the better film. So let's move into our questions. Number 1. Which film is more rewatchable to you?
This is a much tougher question than I think you think it is.
Yeah.
Because for me, the length of Heat makes it a harder rewatch. I just think that's true. Like because it's a methodical movie and because it's just really friggin' long. I'm less inclined to rewatch Heat than I am inclined to watch The Town, which is only 2 hours and moves at a faster pace. So I actually think that The Town is a more rewatchable movie than Heat.
Yeah. Did you know that the original cut of The Town was 4 hours? That's not even a joke. That's true.
That would have made that movie really hard to watch.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this. I mean, I love Heat, and I found myself like enjoying it, but also looking at my watch when I watched it because it's so slow, whereas The Town is kind of kinetic and like
And so
moves quickly.
here's a bigger question for you. Do heist movies, whether they be bank heist movies or anything else, um, are they harder to rewatch once you know the beats? Like, is the element of surprise in a heist movie what makes it work? And when you lose that, does it make it harder to rewatch?
I think it depends on the story around the heist. I mean, that's the heist in by and large is a chunk of the movie, but it's not the story. And I think in these two in particular, it's a matter of, I mean, you know what's going to happen at least in Heat, because if you're like me, you've seen it 5 times. But do you want to sit with those characters? Do you want to? I mean, I'll sit with Neil and Vincent all day. Uh, Watch them hunt down Waingro. I love that. So yeah, I mean the bank robbery feels almost inconsequential in Heat, at least. Now in The Town, it kind of gets things going. Not the main heist, but there's an inciting heist that introduces the Rebecca Hall character, so that sets up the rest of the story. And I think the bank heist at the beginning is inconsequential to the story, other than it puts them together. But that's the story I want to know: is how is he going to handle this woman and their relationship? The heist at the end, I have to say, for The Town, I mean, you're in Fenway, but the whole thing happens basically in a parking garage.
Yeah, underground, right?
That kind of sucks. So even that is like inconsequential for me. I would watch The Town again because it's just a really well made movie, and because of the story in between. I like the Renner character. I love the Pete Postlewaite character. We didn't even talk about him.
Yeah, we didn't talk about any of that. He's
so good.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if there's like I don't know if Inside Man would work that way, because I don't remember.
I've watched Inside Man 3 times. I just kind of love it. I think the performances are so good. Like I really enjoy watching it. So with Heat, I think with Heat, because there's so much in it, it's so dense with character and all the things that go into it. It's rewatchable for that reason. And you watch it a few times, there are things you pick up. Like again, at the very end, because they make a whole thing about the 30 seconds flat thing. And what you realize at the end, when he comes out of the hotel and sees the cop and then looks, and he stands there, and it's actually longer than 30 seconds. Like if you time it, it's like 40 seconds, I think, something like that. And that's how you know that he's not going to survive, right? Because he didn't leave her in time, that he paused and he had to think about it. And it took him longer than 30 seconds. And it's like, well, they set up that rule throughout the whole movie and he blew it, and he's definitely going to die. Which I don't think you catch the first time, and you may not even catch the second time, but eventually you're going to sit there because there's nothing else to do. You're watching it again and you're going to count the seconds, and that's what ends up happening. So I ended up catching that. Yeah. Okay. Then you know exactly how it's going to play out. So there are those things by someone who's meticulously kind of crafting the beats of the movie. So in a way, Heat might be more rewatchable because I think there's so much in it, but because there's so much in it, it makes it harder to rewatch.
Wow, what a riddle.
Yeah, it is. It's a conundrum. I don't know what to say.
Ooh. Well, I think because there's so much in it, you can almost view it with a different mindset each time and find different things too. I mean, you can watch it from Neil's perspective. You can watch it from Vincent's perspective.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
you can watch it from the perspective of the women in the movie who are mostly observers, but you can see it through their eyes and kind of look at it that way, which is a very depressing movie if you watch it that way. But anyway.
Oh, it sure is. Oh boy. Yeah. Michael Mann, not known for drawing out those women characters very well. All right, let's go on to the next question. Would you want to hang out with one of the leads from either of these films?
No.
Yeah.
None of them. It's like I might hang out with Affleck's character in The Town, But since all his buddies are degenerates, I'd be too worried that one of them would show up and then ruin everything. So I wouldn't want to hang out with any of them.
Yeah, I think he's the closest thing to someone I'd want to hang out with, but I'd be like terrified to hang out with Jeremy Renner's character.
I agree.
I just, unless I like sign up for a boot camp or like a retreat with Neil McCauley where he's, teaching me his code of ethics, I wouldn't want to hang out with him. Vincent Hanna is just like a total mess. So I don't think I'd want to do anything with him either.
Yeah, I mean, the only character I would want to hang out with at any of these movies is Rebecca Hall's character in The Town, who seems like the only normal person, but that's about it.
Yeah, we're not hanging out with any of these people. Is this a career peak or valley for any of the main players? Kind of touched on this a little bit. But...
Yeah, you think it's Jeremy Renner's peak. I'm not sure. I agree. I think I do in a way think it's a peak. It's peak for Michael Mann. I do. Like, I think this is the culmination of everything he kind of been building towards. And he finally got to make the movie he wanted to make for 30 years exactly as he wanted to make it. And so I think for that reason it is. And we did even touch on, like, isn't it? It's close to the peak for Pacino and De Niro. Well, I don't want to say peak. It's close to the apex because pretty soon it starts going downhill. So you're kind of at the point where we're right at the end of the beginning where things start to go south. Yeah. So yeah, he much more so for Affleck. I mean, look, he makes this 2 years later. I mean, Argo wins Best Picture. So
yeah,
other thing I didn't realize. So wins the Best Picture for Argo. 4 years later, makes Live by Night, which it's not a good movie. I've seen it. It's not a very good movie. And he doesn't direct again for 7 years until he directed Air in 2023.
Right.
I mean, I haven't read a lot about this. I'm very interested as to why that happened. I don't know I know Live by Night was not a good experience, which is partially why it wasn't a good movie. There was a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes with that. And I don't know, maybe he has such a bad experience with it that he just kind of decided he wanted to walk away from directing for a while. But I don't know, because I agree with you. I think he's actually a pretty excellent director, and I would be happy to see him do more work. So I was pretty surprised that it took that long between movies.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, I never saw Air because it looked ridiculous to me.
Air was really entertaining. I would watch it. I recommend it. It was a good time.
Okay.
And again, it's kind of like him scaling back again and making a really small movie just about, Nike getting Air Jordan. It's an interesting story if you don't know anything about the story either. It's actually, right. Yeah, I recommend it. Death by Lightning and Air are two things you should watch this week.
Okay. I will look them up. To your point about this being peak for Mann, I mean, if this weren't peak for Mann, you probably wouldn't have The Town. So I think it's interesting that,
that's a fair point.
Him at his highest point leads to this Affleck film. All right. Fourth question. Would one of these films be better if directed by your guy, Steven Spielberg?
I mean, wouldn't The Town be a better movie directed by Steven Spielberg? Just because, I mean, okay. I'm trying to take this as seriously as I could take it. On a purely technical standpoint, of course it would be a better movie if Steven Spielberg directed, because you have one of the greatest directors of all time replacing a director who's directing his second film. So it would technically have been a better movie. But the thing that makes The Town work, I think, again, is that Affleck is connected to this place. And there's a certain feeling that comes from that, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. You put in a faceless director, even if he's a great director, into that movie, which feels very much connected to the filmmaker in a place. I don't know if you get a better movie. So you get a technically better movie, but I think you lose the heart of the movie. So I guess no.
Yeah, I think, Michael Mann, you're not going to do better than that.
No, you could. No one else can make Heat. Like no one else can make that movie. It's
right.
It's
But for The Town, I don't think that's Spielberg's wheelhouse. I don't think he could tell that story.
I think everything's Spielberg's wheelhouse. Come on.
Nah. Bank robbery? When's the last time he made a bank robbery movie? Nah. I mean, if it focused on Blake Lively's daughter somehow and was like cast as a really good child actor, then maybe it would work as a Spielberg film. But I don't think he has that dude energy that this film
something,
needs.
Now that I think about it, I mean, you're right. I mean, Spielberg's directed almost every kind of movie. I don't think he's ever directed a crime movie.
Not that I can think of. Maybe Minority Report. Didn't he direct that?
It's a pre-crime movie. That's fair. Yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah.
You're right.
No present day crime movie,
Right.
only pre-crime.
Crimes don't actually happen. But that's what I mean. It's like technically it would be a better looking movie. Minority Report's an amazing looking movie.
Oh, it's so blue though.
Yeah, I kind of love it. But yeah, it was his blue period because AI was also pretty blue. So yeah, it was just the period he was making. But yeah, I don't think he's actually directed a real crime movie. Maybe he should do that before he retires. I'd love to see if he could pull that off.
There you go. See, I'm trying to make you think here. There's a better answer. Okay, last question. Would either film be better if you swapped lead actors?
No, impossible.
Yeah, you can't. It's not a 1-to-1 here. I mean, Heat is a two-hander for sure. And now, if they swapped roles, would De Niro be better as Vincent?
Yeah, well, Pacino had said that when he read the script, he wanted to play the cop. He thought it was better suited for him, and luckily, that's what Mann wanted as well. But yeah, you could make this movie. So there was a Broadway show,
True West.
True West.
Yeah.
But also Top Dog Underdog was another show that I saw where the actors swap roles. So yeah, there's precedent in theater for that. It would have been really cool. I mean, I don't know why Michael Mann didn't do it. It's just another, 3 months of filming. What the hell? He should have just done it, swapped it, shot it both ways, saw how it went.
See, that could have been like an alternative version on the Blu-ray.
Right.
They swap roles. They reshot everything.
Sure, why not? But yeah, because of the age and the thing about Heat is that it only really works with actors of a certain age and a certain experience. And I think even if you swap out any actors for Pacino and De Niro, you get a slightly different movie.
Right.
So yeah, Renner and Affleck are just too young to step into those roles. Although, hang on. Pacino playing Jeremy Renner's character in The Town would be a lot of fun.
That's true.
I would vote for that.
Well, we have Heat 2 coming up, which is supposedly a prequel, and they're casting some really interesting people in that. So you might get a chance to see different energies around those characters. So that might give you a kind of an insight into what it might be if they switch roles. All right. So we're down to our online poll results. And again, follow us on social media, especially Instagram, TikTok, Threads. We're posting polls there every week. We're at Movie Throwdown Pod. Please do follow us and please do vote in our polls. We had 43 votes this week, which is way more than I expected. So thank you everyone for voting. Where are you leaning with these two films, and where do you think the listeners who voted are going to go?
I mean, it's got to be Heat. I mean, who are we kidding? We're dealing with a kind of an all-time classic of the genre with a movie that's really, really excellent that I think is kind of underrated in some ways. Yeah, it's like comparing, Babe Ruth to Pete Alonso, I guess. There you go. That's my baseball reference of the day.
Okay.
One of them is good, but one of them is an all-time great.
For me, I thought going into this, Heat by a landslide, but I really kind of connected with The Town way more than I thought I would. So I'm almost in the middle. I mean, I think Heat is the better movie. It's one I would rewatch. So it's like a 60-40 for me.
Yeah,
I'm going
it's close. I went in already knowing I liked The Town, so I take nothing away from it. But it's just really hard to go against Heat in a way, which is kind of the blueprint of a genre.
Yeah. So online, our voters just over 75%. It was 33-10 in favor of Heat, and a lot of those Town votes came later on for some reason. I don't know that.
Maybe because those people watched the movie for the first time or the first time in a long time were like, "Wow, this is a much better movie than I thought." So maybe that's why.
I would love it if we influenced people on social media that much, but I don't think we do.
I'm going to choose to think that we do.
All right. Well, that's episode 1 of this new format in the can, unless you have something else.
1 minute music minute. Can we do that? My final thoughts. two music thoughts I have to say. There's that scene in the club in Heat. They're in this club, and Vincent actually takes a phone call in that club, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of Malcolm X and Miles Davis on the wall. And I remember clocking this. But the music being played in the club at the time is a song by House of Pain, which is a white hip hop group from Boston, strangely enough. And I just thought, there's no way that song would have been played in that club. I just don't believe that. That's like the one off note for me in Heat. The other thing I have to say, just because the timing works out, the song that plays in the end credits of The Town is a song called Jolene by a singer-songwriter called named Ray LaMontagne, who's actually from New Hampshire. It's off a record called Trouble, which is actually the 20th anniversary of that record is this year.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's
years.
on tour for the 20th anniversary of that record this year. And I remember seeing Ray LaMontagne for the first time at Austin City Limits when that record first came out, so 20 years ago. It is one of my favorite records, at least of the last 25 years. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. Highly recommended. I just have to throw that out there. The 20th anniversary might be a good time to revisit that album.
All right. Does it make you think of The Town when you hear it now?
It does not make me think of The Town. But I appreciate that The Town used it because, again, it just kind of shows, good music choice. And that record had been out for a few years by then. But yeah, he wanted to use that song for 10 credits. Totally agree with that.
I read that it was between that and Jump Around, but because Heat used Jump Around, they couldn't.
There you go. The House of Pain was already been used. They didn't want to go back. Yeah.
All right. So that's it for this episode. It seems like Heat kind of takes the cake. I thought that would be the case, but it's a lot closer than I thought. And it was a lot of fun talking about it and didn't change my mind, but
But it made you think, which is all we can ask for. It made you pause for a minute and think about it.
We are a thinking man's podcast. I always say that, living up to my idea. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Next week, this is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to talk about two films from 1999 that feel almost like a double feature to me. They almost feel like the same film in a way. We're going to talk about Entrapment from director John Amiel, and it's going to go head to head with The Thomas Crown Affair, directed by John McTiernan.
So we're staying in the heist genre, just different kinds of heists now.
I'm very excited about this one. Already bought The Thomas Crown Affair. Can't find Entrapment at a reasonable price, so I'm probably not going to do that. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to join us on social media, as we said, and cast your votes. We are Movie Throwdown Pod on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And for fun, follow us on Letterboxd, where we're at Movie Throwdown. All right, we will see you next week for Entrapment versus The Thomas Crown Affair. So long.